So talk to me about how you see the word identity. What does that mean to you?
It's straightforward to me. Your identity is the idea you have of yourself, right? It's the way you describe and think about yourself. I get to say, this is my identity. And if this is my identity, then this is how I live.
Don't outsource your identity. I'm telling you.
By default, letting it be defined by the things around you, by the things you do, kind of a reverse definition versus a sourced and proactive definition of yourself. And so it looked like rushing. As simple as that. It looked like going from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. No things or rare or a few things that I actually chose. So if you haven't given any thought to that, if those aren't things that you consciously chosen because they serve you, they bring you joy, they move you towards a goal or something important to you, they feel good, then you're likely outsourcing your identity, right? So I always say, look at your calendar, look at your bank account, look at your thoughts or your journal if you journal and write them down, or listen to your conversations. And that will tell you what is the driving force of your life. What's driving your life? I could tell you everything about your life from looking at those 3 receipts. You get to determine, I call it your team, your time, your energy, your attention, and your money or movement. That is the lever, that's the structure. Calendar, money, investment, and thoughts. That's where your power lies. Shauna said this, we spend 80% of our time working. So if you don't love your work, you can't love your life.
Everybody doesn't like their job. Everybody doesn't whatever. And creating that normalcy, I think it is really just continuing to do that thing you talked about earlier, draining us of what it means to stand in knowing, who we are and who we're created to be in that identity.
My physical health was declining as a result of my internal identity crisis and identity betrayal, right? And my dad would always say, the mind forgets what the body remembers. I'm Radiah Rhodes. I am CEO of Evoke. I am a founder and a well-being innovator, part founder of Smart Press Juice and the Rest Spot, which is in Atlanta, Georgia. I come from a 20-year career, a corporate veteran and executive in the beauty industry, an engineer by degree. I am married and I have 2 children, 2 teenage children. We are an athletic and highly active family that loves all things sports and has a great vision for our next phase that's wrapped around that. So I can't wait to bring that to the forefront in what we're doing. I'm a Jersey girl. I'm from New Jersey. I grew up on the beach all day. No matter where I am, I will say I live here, but I am from Jersey. I'm a fan of hip hop from the jump. So it's threaded into everything that I do and what I love.
If somebody only got one thing from this, what would you want them to take away?
One thing. It would be stop acting like you don't have power. You get to say. It may not feel like it. It may not look like it. The world and the reality that we're living, the circumstances might be doubling down on saying that you don't, but I promise you, you do. You have power and you get to say. So start saying.
I want to jump right into this because I already know your center about the word identity and what that is and what that means. And since we're doing this series to really bring language to that for people, something that I've kind of been thinking about lately, just generally, is that on the internet, this word identity is being thrown around like grass, like, just like a very regular kind of word. So talk to me about how you see the word identity. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's straightforward to me. Your identity is the idea you have of yourself. It's the lens that you look through things. Obviously identity in psychology is super studied and there's a lot of science and there's technical terms all around it. Let me be clear. I'm not out here trying to parade as a psychologist because that
disclaimer
that has happened, right? But but I understand a lot of the science and what I read about it. But in terms of applying it, for me, which is important, the application and how it's useful for me in living a high quality life, it's what is the idea that I have about myself? What do I think about myself? Who do I think I am? That is then the filter through which I'm evaluating, judging, making choices, and taking action and behaving. So that's my simple way of looking at it. That gives me some agency, some real power to determine it. I get to say, this is my identity. And if this is my identity, then this is how I live. This is what that means. This is how I live. So then this is how I show up. This is the standard for how I be with myself, how I relate to myself, how I carry myself, how I show up, how I focus and take action.
Yeah, and that I feel like that brings up two things for me that I just want to like hover around. So you choose your identity essentially. And so maybe these are two different questions, but
Uh-huh.
who are you? How do you identify yourself specifically?
So there's a lot of answers. The simple answer, the identity that I've chosen is I am life-changing love. I
Mm,
chose that identity because at a time where I was struggling with multiple identities, I had had two children, I had gotten married, I had bought and sold houses, moved job assignments multiple times in a 2-year period.
hmm.
I was struggling with who I was. I never really even defined it or thought about it consciously. And then I was in the midst of life, a bunch of things pulling at me
Yeah.
that were just fragmenting, and from that, my father just asked me the question, who are you?
Hmm.
I didn't know how to answer it. I had never thought about it. So at that point in time, and I tell this story all the time, I went to a spreadsheet because I'm an engineer, I was a project man, right? It was all these roles, these things that I did and had trained myself into. And that drove my behavior. That means go to a spreadsheet, sort this thing out, girl. So that's what I did. And what came to me when I just sat with the question was life-changing love. It just came through as a thought. And, we have tens of thousands of thoughts in a day. So it came through as a thought. But when it came through, I felt it in my center,
Yeah.
in my soul, and I felt it like, yeah. And why it resonated is because at that point in time, there was my relationships, right, were very much in flux. Becoming a wife from a girlfriend with a whole history and experience of relationship there, becoming a mother, becoming a daughter-in-law, all these things, my work relationships. And so what I realized about myself is that I do love really deeply. I love really deeply and really wide. And I think that in the past had caused me a lot of suffering,
Hmm.
but it was just true. It rang true. And so I embraced it. And I said, that is true. That is true. And when I embraced it, then the next question was, well, what does that really mean?
Yeah.
You
And
know?
it's so crazy. That really leads me right to the next kind of part of the question is because initially you were saying identity is the thing that you choose to be. But it sounds to me like it chooses you. It's something that comes up from the inside where you can kind of take hold of what is true. Do you find that to be the case? Or do you think, and I'll tell you why in a minute, why I'm asking it this way, or do you think that people can just go, nah, I'm just this. I am just this, and I'm choosing that. Does that work?
So some of that's a political question, but here's the thing.
Please no.
We got people out here I know choosing all kinds of identities, right? But it's both. I wouldn't say it's an either or. I would say that there are things within us that are coded in for multiple reasons that are just coded. So when I said life-changing love, and I was like, oh, that's true. It
Yeah.
was so true. And I felt it because it is who I am. It's not just I
Hmm.
do love deeply, but I love so deeply. It is who I am. So it's a both and, in my opinion. Um, it is, but there are a lot of things that we might be subconsciously through our experiences that we don't want to act through or live through. We don't want to act out and live
Mm.
through. So there is choice in it. That to me is where the power is. And even if there's something in you that's coded, you as the human being, like me, what does it mean? I'm the one that makes it mean something about the way I live my life, about the way I show up, about the way I connect with people. So I look
Hmm.
at it as a both and. There are things that are coded. I believe that. I believe that there are innate elements, and that's where the resonance comes in. So when you hear it or it comes up, there's this resonance that's coming from what's coded in you. And then there's
Right.
this choice of, okay, well, what are you going to make that mean for you and your life and how you.
Mm. Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say, and let me make sure I'm please jump in, correct me if I'm wrong. But what I'm hearing you say is that identity is really two part. It's part interior coding. Like you are a way, you're born a way. There's a piece of you that is meant to be, and because it's meant to be, it is. And there's this experiential thing that happens to us all that contributes to identity, but we get to pick and choose what pieces stick to add value to that innate coding.
Yeah. It's just like any idea. I was talking about the thoughts and the ideas. So if my belief is that my identity is the idea I have of myself, an idea is a thought. A belief is a thought that I hold to be true. So my identity becomes this thought, this idea
Hmm.
that I hold to be true and mean something about me and my life and allow to drive me in the way I address, assess, filter, choose, behave in life. Um, and so that's the difference between there's unconscious, right, or subconscious aspects that can drive our identity, those ways of being, like the way we show up, and we don't know why, we don't know what's driving that.
Hmm.
And then there's being
Hmm.
conscious. So I'm speaking to conscious identity, right? I'm speaking to a conscious, an identity that I'm aware of, an identity that I'm choosing, an identity that I'm aligning and behaving and governing myself by.
What are people getting wrong about identity out here in the marketplace? Like this is the thing that we obsess about as a topic. What are people blowing in their way that they're thinking about this?
I think one easy one, which we all do, and I did for a long, long time, is letting other people define it,
Oh,
right?
that
Like,
part.
yeah,
Don't outsource your identity. I'm
that
telling you.
part. Yeah. Like, just completely not thinking about it, not paying attention to it, not leveraging it, and being conscious of it. And
Mhm.
therefore, by default, letting it be defined by the things around you, by the things you do.
We're gonna double click on that real quick, because
Okay.
you're hitting on something really important. I did an episode of the show recently that talked about autopilot being the preferred like modality for our society. People just
Hmm.
kind of getting in and following in workplace in particular the
Okay.
trajectory of promotion, and as long as promotion is happening, you're good, and there's nothing to stop and like challenge. So the part that I want to double click on is this. What is it about? Because I really want to like simplify it for anybody that's listening, because we're using words that like are a part of our lexicon because this is the work that we live in. But what
Yeah.
does it look like for somebody who is like day to day, they're going through life and their identity is being outsourced by an experience, by a family member, by a job, by a whatever, and they don't know it because autopilot is kind of, the normal thing. What does
Yeah.
that look like for them experientially?
So I'm gonna tell you what it looked like for me. It looked
Okay.
like, and it's funny. So it looked like rushing. As
Mm.
simple as that. It looked like going from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, that were all no things or rare or a few things that I actually chose. Right. So I always say, look at your calendar, look at your bank account, look at your thoughts or your journal if you journal and write them down, or listen to your conversations. And that will tell you what is the driving force of your life, what's driving your life. So if you haven't given any thought to that, if those aren't things that you consciously chosen, because they serve you, they bring you joy, they move you towards a goal or something important to you, they feel good, then you're likely outsourcing your identity. You're going from thing to thing to thing, none of the things of, or few of the things of which you've chosen yourself
Hmm.
consciously, because they actually serve you, what you're up to, who you want to be, how you want to show up in the world. So you can
What
just
does
accounting.
so I love that. I'm sorry, I thought I interpreted a pause
Go
as a
ahead.
stop. My apologies.
No, no, no,
Um,
you're good.
it's it's such an interesting thing. What does it look like to make a sourced internal source, because you use that word like a sourced identity. What does it
Mhm.
look like to make a sourced version of your identity and own that versus an outsourced version? So we're talking about rushing and all those things. So what does it look like when you know who you are? Because that's really the crux of identity, is knowing who you
Yes.
are. Now, the who you are has the different components we've been talking about. But what
Mhm.
does it look like to have a sourced identity? What's the difference?
I go back to the not necessarily the opposite, but when we talked about outsourced identity, like rushing from thing to thing, none of the things you've chosen, On the flip side of that, there is a deliberate, like I wake up and I make deliberate choices about what I'm going to invest my attention and my energy and my focus and my
Hmm.
time into. So that's what it looks like for me. It looks like choosing and where I'm investing myself, my identity,
Mm.
choosing that and having those things be aligned, having those things be sourceful, meaning that they bring me joy, they bring me happiness, they allow me to further things that matter to me and impact, they bring me connection. So that sourcing my own identity means that I'm aware and choosing in each moment what it is I want, what I'm going to invest my energy and time into, who I'm going to connect with, how I'm going to show up.
Yeah. And I think that, lifestyle design is always the thing that kind of underpins the things that I talk about. And I think that that's where you start to see it. It's
Mm-hmm.
when you start to make these intentional choices that really shift the quality of your life. So, like, me, I packed it up and moved to Barbados
Yeah.
because there needed to be some sort of shift in my environment that was cellular. I mean, like, listen, what's the
Yeah.
word? Cellularly contributing to who I am. And then to get
Yeah.
here and really rediscover how deeply entrenched my actual DNA is to this place. That
Yeah.
just adds a layer to my familial identity though. So it's
Yeah.
not just that, oh, Barbados was a cool thing to do. It's like, nah, bruh, there are some
Where you're
places and
supposed to
some
be.
things and some circumstances and situations that are connected to you at that like real cellular level. Now
Yeah.
listen, you and I have been coaching people, you longer than me, right? But we've been coaching people for a long time. And
Yeah.
we'll get to like, exactly all the things that you do and all that beautiful things. But even just through Evoke, you have really set the gold standard of what it is to coach in the modern society that we find ourselves in through an identity-centered lens.
Mm-hmm.
What is this is because this is all right, this is a little nitty-gritty. We might could cut this out, but probably not. Um, what is like the biggest challenge you have seen in coaching other people? And like, was it pertaining to now, and obviously around identity, but was it pertaining to their work, their family, or was it all of it? What was like the biggest challenge you got somebody to click into place about how identity was the problem?
A very, very dear friend of mine called me, who also was a client at one point, called me and said that, hey, I was on a stage, I was speaking, and here was my conversation. They asked me what my strategy was, and I said my strategy was my power. And then they went into talking through that. And this is when we first started coaching a person who would not say the word power, couldn't say it. I mean, literally, as we would continue to say empowered, and then just like, oh, I don't like that word, it's corrupt. And because a lot of our language has been co-opted and distorted, right? Then we resist the words, but those words have power. And so if we're resisting the word power, then in a way, sometimes we're undermining, discounting, or resisting our own power. So I would say that's a symbol, um, and part of our methodology with Evoke and coaching identity lens is sovereignty. That's the highest level of identity, of well-being, of intention that we coach by. And that is a powerful place to be. And it's not even a word that a lot of people use, the word sovereignty. What does it mean to be sovereign? Having
Hmm.
the supreme authority and choice and power over who you are and how you live your life. And we are born sovereign. Human beings are born sovereign. We have free will. We are born sovereign. It's conditioned out of us. We have life experiences and we're wired in ways to be driven by our subconscious. All of that is, I believe a big part of life is returning to that sovereignty. And so that becomes the sticking point in a lot of coaching conversations, is this realization that we do have power, that we do have power. We have
Hmm.
innate power that we are born with to choose how we show up, who we are, what that means, what anything means. We're doing it always anyway, but we're not doing it consciously
Hmm.
or aligned. So that
There's
is the thing that is always the sticking point.
Well, but that's good though that you can articulate it in such a clear way because that helps everybody get unstuck faster. And then the people that you work with, that license from you guys and come under the umbrella, like it's something that you add easily to the
Mhm.
language so that anybody got to go figure that out. What's
Right.
interesting is, and you know this because we've talked about this, me and that word sovereignty as it applies to humans, child, I reject it. But like, and I'm gonna tell you in this
Mhm.
moment what's different for me because we haven't caught up about this in a minute.
Okay.
What's interesting is okay, so just backstory for everybody listening. I'm God's kid, right? So we this is the thing that we agree on. We believe that God is in charge and all the things. So
Mhm.
Shauna's problem with the word sovereign is that I have always attributed it only to God. So
Right.
here's here, and so when Radiah would bring me this word, y'all, like literally, I'd be like, don't call me sovereign. I am nothing. I am no one. I bow to the Lord. Right. So I was having this crisis of faith where I'm like, and let me use my big word, cosmologically, you cannot put me here in giving adjectives to describe my character, capacity, ability, whatever, in any
Mhm.
way the same with God. Here's what shifted. I still don't think that. There are people that run around saying that they are God. I do no, 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 no. That's not what I'm saying. I still don't think that it is equality that is the thing. But what I do think as a bit of a growth moment from the last time we talked about this is that if the Spirit of God is at work in you and through you, then
Mhm.
you have got to learn to trust the choices that you feel inclined to make. So
Mhm.
separating out the sovereignty of God from you as a person and making that separate, it almost teaches a distrust of the vessel and vehicle by which God's life-changing things are happening in the world. So I'm
Yeah.
saying all of this to say that child. So I still nobody, I still can't be called sovereign. It would stress me out. So let's not do that. But
It's
but
okay.
but
It's
I
what works for you.
but
That's
I
fundamental to me. It's like,
understand
yeah.
principally, I understand the concept and
Mhm.
teaching that trust on this big divine. You are a cosmic being. You are here to facilitate the divine ethereal into the world so that it can be tangible with your hands, your feet, your mind,
Yep.
your choice.
Yep.
That has been a real blessed shift. Now, this would segue me into something else, but I just want to leave space because I know you wanted to go back to the Barbados thing also.
Yes. Well, okay, so let me hit what you were just saying. One is
Hmm.
yes. First of all, it's whatever works for you. I'm not here to say this is absolute truth and this is what it is and this right. I'm not here to, and I'm definitely not here to impose what's true for me onto you.
Hmm.
Because ultimately, my goal with anybody is that you're living the life you're meant to live that works for you. And for that to happen, it's got to be what you're embodying, what matters to you, what you hold to be true, what you believe. So if that's what you believe and that works for you and that creates the impact and the life you want, then have at that. You know what I mean? So, and it's not so far from what I believe. You just hold it differently anyway. And I think about
Hmm.
often like my children, again, we have all kinds of different ways to relate to divine source, universe, God,
Yep.
right? What you believe in as a higher power. I just said this to someone yesterday. They were saying, I posted a video of my daughter working out, and they were like, "Oh, I thought that was you." And I said, "Oh, that's my twin, only way better." Right. And so that's what I think about us being made in the image and likeness of God and this expression of God, to your point, that is here to tangibly in time and real space
Yep.
create in the image and likeness, um, is that we are an expression and we carry that power in the
Hmm.
world to bring it
Yep.
into the world and connect. And we are part of that. We
Yep.
are one, right? And so, to your point, the minute we think that way, we create a hierarchy and a separation from God that for me becomes a power leak. You know,
Yep.
it
Agreed.
lets me off the hook sometimes of things that I could show up to and actually move and impact. We talked about this because you said we're dying. Oh, so what you're really saying is stop acting like you don't have power, right? So
Hmm.
that separation from God becomes this space where we start acting like we don't have power that we actually do
Absolutely.
have. Yeah.
Absolutely. It has been a mind blowing shift for me. Because so this was the little bit of thing that I was going to say, and this probably is going to lead back to Barbados because everything for me leads back to Barbados.
All right.
But
I'm in your
it's
clearing. I'm in your space this morning. So,
like everybody, this is it's gonna be delicious. So literally though, what I discovered, and I don't know if you have had this experience, it is the stories that our traumatic experiences create for us about who we are and what we are capable
Mhm.
of.
Yeah.
It's almost like I was more comfortable thinking about God as this big separate thing from me when I also believe that it's his power that is at work in me, that if I am on his mission, then God would give you the desires of your hearts. And so I've always interpreted that to mean not just he's going to hand you things, but sometimes that idea will
Mhm.
lead you to the desire of your heart, and he is giving you his desires as you are seeking like it's one symbiotic thing, and I've always
Yeah.
believed that. But it was
Mhm.
something in the way that I was perceiving myself as like less flawed,
Mhm.
lower, whatever, that was allowing the separation to be more like safe. We have all these experiences that we hold, and we're creating these stories around them that would call us unworthy. And
Mhm.
that unworthiness said, oh, well, we don't have the power, the capacity, the ability, the drive, the resources, all of these things that we keep telling ourselves. So we scroll the internet until we think we find
The
whatever
answer.
the next piece of the puzzle is. And then
Yeah.
but still underperforming and undervaluing, like, who we are, our identity and what we're
Yeah,
created to
but
be.
right. And let's talk about that because it'll take us back to the what I was thinking about before. So one is, there's those ideas of ourselves, are conditioning. And we know historically in our social, cultural context, that we've been conditioned into that everything in the world wants to tell us we are less than, and we're conditioned into that. And our realities, like what we wake up to on the daily basis. I don't care if you're in a boardroom somewhere or you're in
Mhm.
your neighborhood somewhere, those realities of interacting with people will try to reinforce that same narrative. Those are real experiences that we deal with, people undermining us, people questioning us, and they're subtle, right? We call them microaggressions. We have all kind of words to describe it. The truth is that we are conditioned into an identity that can diminish the power of who we really are. Our everyday realities keep trying to reinforce that and drive that. That's a lot. That's a huge and heavy force to combat on a daily basis,
Mhm.
right? To actually show up in a world that is trying to shrink you at every turn is a
Mhm.
significant sense of self and power that's required to move through that.
If you've been challenging yourself, if you've been really taking the steps, the bold, courageous steps to consider whether or not the way that you've been showing up for your life every day, starting with the way that you work, if you've been considering whether or not that is serving your greatest, highest, boldest, best version of your life, then it is likely that you've discovered that it probably isn't. That there are probably places where you can actually maximize the way you show up every day to get a better version of your life. One where you're not tired all the time, one where you're not exhausted, one where you are looking forward to things. Recently, I started the Uncultured coaching community, which is really a space for you to go after the next goal for your life. And in this season, the goal that we are going after is relocation to another country, at least for part of the year. Now, why does that even matter? Because when you're thinking about reinventing your life, changing the way that you're showing up in the world to align your work, your life, your wisdom, the way that you show up, how you feel every day, when you're looking to align those things, then sometimes you realize I don't belong here. And it's not that you don't belong here some of the time, but you start to get the understanding that there's some other places that you could go and that you could be. I know that's what happened for me, that it became part of my lifestyle design to consider this picture in a more, global kind of a way. So if that's you, if you are the person that has been challenging the way that work is at the center of your life and realizing that it's time for you to make some changes, I want to personally invite you into this community, this space where we are going after the uncommon life, one where we're not waiting for retirement to live a life that we really want to live. We're not working for the next 60 years to be able to structure our lives. And I want to tell you right now, you don't need to have $1 bazillion saved up for this to be true for you. You just have to get intentional about it. So this community is so that all of us can have this conversation around what it means to really live in an uncultured way, in a way that goes against the plan, a way that goes against what popular culture is telling us is, the right way to get to success. This is your opportunity to reimagine and re-envision the way that your life could be so that you get to live a much more bold and vibrant version of your life every single day. If that's you, click the link below this video and just join the community today. We are waiting for you to continue this uncultured conversation. Now let's get back to the show.
What is really important is structure, because to just try to force and will yourself through that every day can be draining and exhausting. So structure looks like the people that you connect with on a regular basis and the conversations and the energetic that group of people is actually operating in, so that you are held at a level, you can call it equally yoked, whatever you want to call it, right? You're held into a certain energetic, a certain worldview, and a space that allows you to tap into and come from your own power. That's where you live, your environment, and how you live, the space. And does that allow for you to kind of have moments of clarity, to sit and rest and be free flowing? The work you do, what you determine to or choose to commit yourself to as your creative expression in the world. Like I look at work, your work is your creative expression. It's what you're creating and producing and generating and putting out there into the world. So your relationships, your space, your environment, your own routine, your schedule, I keep saying, go back to your calendar, your bank account, your journal. I'm going to tell you, I could tell you everything about your life from looking at those 3 receipts. So structure is critical, because structure allows and gives you that additional power and energy to live as you say you are, and not be, at the effect of the circumstances and the definitions that externally people want to call you.
The live as you say you are is the part that I think trips us all up, because we don't take, and I'm putting myself in this because I've been there. I've been the person on the side of this that like, I'm an engineer. I'm going to go to school, get the degree, do the things, do the stuff. This is what I am. And at no point did anybody ever equip me with the tools to be able to ask, is this right for me? Not right by, am I being a criminal by going to school? So that level of right and wrong, like societal level of right and
not
wrong.
Morally,
yeah, but is this a right for me? And the reality was when I struggled, because I don't like the word, but I'm going to put it here because this was really what it was. The season of the decade where I struggled to understand what nobody else seemed to be able to language at that time was that no, it was not right for me. But that meant an abandonment of everything I knew in order to embrace that truth. So as we're talking about things like structure, one of the things that I say a lot is I encourage people to challenge everything about their lives and ask it a question. Is this right for me? Is this good for me? Not for the whole. But as you're talking about structure, what is like something today, somebody's watching this right now, and they can do to start to create a bit of a structure around this process?
Yeah, I mean, it's the things we hear that, but again, it's not just reapplying or copying someone else's version of it. It's really choosing consciously for yourself. So it's the things we hear, like when you wake up in the morning, where do you put your attention and your energy first? Just even in that first 30 minutes that you wake up, first 5 minutes that you wake up in the morning, where does your attention and your energy go? That's this bit of structure. You get to determine where your energy, I call it your team, your time, your energy, your attention, and your money or movement. Though your team, where does your team go? You get to say where your team goes. I don't care. I used to think when I was in corporate, I had my calendar. We used Microsoft Outlook, whatever we used. I had my calendar, and it never occurred to me that I could block out time blocks where I didn't have any commitment. Like I could just say from 1 to 2, I'm not taking any meetings. I'm not, I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do. It never occurred to me. I thought, hey, if I didn't really have already some commitment, in a time block that it was available and somebody could ask for it and somebody could take it. So this idea that we literally get to say where our time, energy, attention, money, and movement goes is real foreign. It doesn't, it just, what? I can't do that. My kids, my boss, my husband, like whatever. So to me, the structural thing to do is to first determine your own schedule. As soon as something shifts for me, you talk about determining what's right for you. Like, is this right for me? And I would shift that question a little bit to say, is this working for me? Because we don't necessarily know what's right, and I know that you're saying it's not a moral thing and that, like where you're coming from is like, is this serving you? Is this actually forwarding what you're up to? Is this aligned with you? So for me, it's like, if it's not working for me, which I find out often, like, oh, I committed to this thing, to this project. And then I'm starting to do the project and I'm learning like, oh no, I don't like
Right, but
this.
that's okay too. And even that
Yes,
needs permission to be like, you know what?
yes, because
This
you
is
own
not,
your team.
yeah.
So if I own my team, then I know that those are my levers always. So the first thing I do when something stops working for me is I get with Mo, who is my admin, and I say, Mo, what we doing? Let's look at this calendar. What we doing?
Mm-hmm.
Because this ain't working. And we structure my time in a way that produces what I want. The peace I need, the
Mm-hmm.
space I need to think, the connection with the people that I love the most, or the type of work or what I'm up to creating. You gotta use your team, your time, energy,
Mm-hmm.
attention, money, and movement towards the things that do work for you and serve you. That is the lever, that's the structure. Calendar, money investment, and thoughts, journal, conversations, like your thoughts. That's where your power lies, because that's what's creating your reality. That's what's creating the tangible things in real life. Think about
Yeah.
it. As a human being, you wake up, you're on a clock, right? That we made this clock, we're on this clock, 24-hour clock. We're determining through thoughts and ideas what we're going to apply our focus and attention to, what we're going to put our energy on to create some output. We're doing that all day long. And most of us are not choosing what that is. We're just doing that according
Mm-hmm.
to someone else's request or demand. And we're justifying doing that by saying, I got to make money and
Yep.
live
To pay
and
my bills.
livelihood, right? And I
Yep.
used to say this to my husband all the time, we could downsize. If this is going to cost me that, we
That
could
part.
downsize this. And we, like everybody, sandwich generation, have parents aging, and but these are choices. These are the choices. It's going
These
to
are
cost.
choices. And there's so much power in just knowing that you do get to choose,
You
that
do.
this life that you have, it's not baked in, it's not etched in stone. And I think you said something really important that I just want to like double click real quick. It's enough to know what is not working for you. It's
Mhm.
enough to know
Oh
what
yeah.
is not working because you
Not
can
working.
remove that and make space for something else. I think a lot of times people stay at this stasis of autopilot at the compromise to their identity, by the way, in order to just really not do anything in particular, but in order to keep the status quo going on. My bills are getting paid, I'm okay as long as my bills are getting paid and I'm good. But the reality, and they
Mhm.
stay there because nothing else has made itself evident. They're like, well, I don't know what else I would do.
Yeah.
So even if
Yeah.
they're brave enough to have the courage to be like, oh, this isn't working, but like I don't know what I'm doing next, so I'm just gonna keep it right here.
But a lot of things. So, and that's right. So I want y'all to know, because I cut to the chase. I practice what I preach. I'm human like everybody else. One of my phrases is people going people, and I'm people too, which is like, as
Mhm.
people, we're gonna have all these stories about what we can and can't do and what will and won't work for us. And at the same time, I'm people too. I got my stories, right? But here's what I say to that. And here's what I say to myself. Um, we figure out hard things all the time when other people ask us. We don't know what this work assignment, and work is a big part of it. I heard you say one time, Shauna, we spend 80% of our time working. And if you don't love your work, you can't love your life. And that,
I think for
baby,
myself.
if
That's
you
it.
you spend, I'm gonna say that again. Shauna said this. We spend 80% of our time working. So if you don't love your work, you can't love your life.
Cannot.
That is a math equation. That to me, that's not a cliche like, ooh, and it's got all
Mm-mm.
that to it, but that's a math equation. And that's how I
Yep.
see things. That's just by design. That's
Mm-hmm.
the key. So if that's a choice you're making, which is everybody's choice to make, then just realize the one and one that equals two in that equation. And this is coming from a person who got sick from work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who left my corporate job after being on FMLA. I was
Mm-hmm.
sick. It was making me sick to that extent. I would not choose something different because of the livelihood. We had two kids. We have all the things like everybody else's life. But there's a cost. There's a cost. So, so these are choices. And I would say I don't judge people's choices because I don't know your life. I don't know your life. And people really do what makes sense to them. As crazy as it might seem to somebody from the outside, most of the time people are doing what makes sense to them in their
Mm-hmm.
world. And I don't
Yep.
know their world. So I don't judge your choices. But I do be getting judgy when you making choices, acting like they ain't your choices. So even though it felt like I had to keep working because I had to with the livelihood and all the things, that was a choice.
Yep.
And it was a choice
Yep.
I paid a price in health for.
Yep.
And
But that,
we
I'm
figure
sorry.
out how to do hard things and shake up things all the time when other people ask us. So we have
Mm-hmm.
to then be willing to choose to do those hard things and shake up things for ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. And it's
Mhm.
it's so crazy. I didn't know why I felt real compelled to wear this particular shirt today, but
What does
that's
it
what
say?
this whole thing, it says choose love. It's literally, but that's it though. It's to choose love, and really to choose love of God, to choose love of yourself, to choose to love other people. And that's really the trifecta for me. But to
Yeah,
to understand that it is a choice to have that loving posture toward yourself. And it's
that's
so
right.
crazy that you bring this up. And I think a lot of people that are working jobs are discounting how their physical well-being is
Yeah,
attached to their internal sense of
yeah.
identity, because your outward illness is the compromise of your identity showing itself. That is what
100%.
I'm telling. That's what
100%.
it is, particularly as it comes to like working and that kind of thing. But we overlook it because, well, everybody's sick. Everybody has anxiety. Everybody doesn't like their job. Everybody
Hmm.
doesn't whatever. And creating that normalcy, I think it is really just continuing to do that thing you talked about earlier, draining us of what it means to stand in knowing, who we are and who we're created to be in that identity.
Yeah, that absolutely. My physical health was declining as a result of my internal
Yeah.
identity crisis and identity betrayal, right? We talk about Dr. Ronnie, my business partner, and I talk about all the time how, we need so much self-care because we got so much self-betrayal. And so we're out here repairing the daily damage. Um, and my dad would always say, the mind forgets, but the body remembers. And
Oof.
so I
Powerful.
totally, totally have experienced and believe and know. And I believe that many of us know that. We've seen enough examples that we know that's the case. We've experienced ourselves enough times that we know that's the case. But knowing doesn't make the difference. We all know
No.
how to lose weight. We all know a lot of things that we're not
Yeah.
necessarily applying. And that for me was a big shift in, the hard times that I have been through in my life. I read a lot, I prayed a lot, I was in church, I would all the things that we do. And I was like, wow, I would feel better when I was in those things. And then when I would go back to myself and day-to-day life, everything would crumble again. I'd go back to the default way of thinking and, feeling powerless. And I just was like, I don't want to, excuse me. I was like, I don't want to just know these things or just feel good when I'm escaping into these things. I want to live this.
Yeah.
I don't want to know it and try to remember. I want to live this that I just read.
Yeah. There's
Everything, go ahead.
no, you go.
It makes me think about, not that I'm a huge Steve Harvey fan, but I heard this one time where he said, if you just take one of the things that you've heard and apply it, you can change your whole life. We are
Literally.
inundated with cliches and gems and scriptures, right? All the things that are telling us the truth.
Yeah.
And we just keep seeking more and more and more and more, right? So that we never have to actually apply it. That's the gap. The gap
Yeah.
is, what do you know that you're willing to actually live? And that's what we were talking about. How do I live who
Mhm.
I am? It's not
Yep.
enough to just know, oh, I'm life changing love. Well, what does that actually mean? What does that
Yeah.
mean? I get specific for what that means about what I believe, what I
Yep.
think, what I feel, how I carry my body, what I
Yeah.
do and don't do, the standards for me and how I live, because that's all I can. I can't control nobody else. I'm not
Right.
setting criteria for other people. I'm setting standards by which I operate by and how I show up that guide me to be who I say I am. And sometimes I believe that people don't understand how that simple thing
Yeah.
creates a great life.
Yeah.
Like the simple everyday things. If you choose to get clear about who you are, you determine specifically what that means about how you operate yourself on a daily basis, then how that plays into your health and your money and your relationships. Like, define that for yourself. And then you
Hmm.
just choose every day to focus on showing up in that way, how that will create the outcomes that you think you're driving and striving for every day so
Yeah.
much at the expense of your health and your well-being.
And this is so good because this is the pathway, y'all. This is literally a masterclass on how to get in tune with your identity and know how to go forward. The last thing I just want to, because I know we got to wrap, but like what I am thinking about is the person that is watching this, that
Mm-hmm.
is going to work every day, that maybe has a little high blood pressure, maybe has a little soreness in their bodies, maybe
Mm-hmm.
has like, maybe if they thought about it real hard, they had some sad thoughts every now and then. But
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of couched in this societal normalcy or familial normalcy where this is like not even anything to bring up. So
Yeah.
as you have been sharing, and I know I have my own story of like illness and feeling the
Mm-hmm.
pressure and the stress. And this, for me, it was just a whole thing of stress. I had doctors that told me in my 20s, they were like, hey, listen, you either have thyroid cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, or a heart disease. And one of these things is going to kill you, man. We don't know which one yet. So we got to run the test to figure it out. But for all of that to boil down to eventually, after weeks of testing, oh, you just got stressed. Oh, and you have like a baby heart condition. But really, it's just stress. So be less stressed. What? But I think that we live in a society where all of those things are couched in normalcy. So my question for
Mm-hmm.
you is what was it for you that was like the moment where you were like, "Oh, it is because I am not in alignment." And maybe that's not the word that you had at the time,
Right.
but in hindsight you have that language. But what was the moment where you were like, either this, I can't keep doing this way. It has to be something different. And I know you mentioned about your dad asking you the question. So if that was that, then cool. But then when were you like, oh, I really, this, all of this thing I've been feeling in my body has been a result of like this?
So I'm the person that, they talk about, you first, God will give you a whisper and then I'll give you a tap and then
You need
God
to
will
be
give
yelled at.
you, yeah, and then it'd be a brick to the forehead, right? So I'm the brick.
Flop.
I'm the brick. I've been the brick. Like, I get to the point where I have gotten to the point in multiple situations in my life where it was like, I can't keep going on this way.
Yeah.
The emotional pain, the visceral, like spiritual pain, the physical health, like I can't keep going on. Even in the scenario of my corporate job, listen, the universe opened up and was like, hey, we're gonna the brand I was working for was being acquired. And so there were some positions that if you weren't willing to relocate to New York, then you would have a voluntary, separation package. So even the universe opened up like, girl, like, come on, get out. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So
Hmm.
I have been the person, at least was in those situations where it took the brick. So there wasn't
Yeah.
this epiphany that was like, okay, like I can do this. It wasn't that. What I would say is that I at least took the brick and was like, okay. And as I moved forward from the brick, I started to see this pattern oh, if I just do these simple things of taking care of myself, focusing on, and then that self-care turned into like self expansion, and then that turned into self-actualization, and so right, and then so I just kept growing, and then I eventually could see the pattern that said, oh shit, if I live in a way that actually builds me up, my life will be great.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then you look at it and you're like, yeah, that's obvious.
Oh, look at that.
It ain't rocket science at all in terms of like, if I live in a way that supports me, I will be supported. And when I'm supported, I am great.
Yep.
It's that
Yep.
equation. So I just never, had the room. It's like giving someone, trying to feed somebody who's been starving steak, a cracker will do. You just
A
can see
cracker
the
will
thing
do.
that's right beyond where you are. But once the brick came and I followed and said, okay, well, let me start operating in this way, then I started to see the pattern. And that pattern
Mm-hmm.
reinforced me continuing that. And it just kept growing where it was like, and the beauty is me, I then documented and designed and was able, because of my engineering brain, to see the pattern and create a process that allowed me to repeat that. Like,
Yep.
oh, because remember, I said, I don't want to just know this, I want to live this. So, how do I set up a structure that allows me to live this way so I can keep feeling and experiencing the benefit of owning and my identity, of being clear about it, of aligning my life to my identity, of paying attention and being present to who I'm being in the moment and checking myself, checking my identity,
Mm-hmm.
and then redefining it. For me, life-changing love is so expansive that
Mm-hmm.
it has just been true since my father asked me that question in like 2003, whatever it was. But um, but no, maybe it was like 2010. But in every season, I then choose, to your earliest or first
Exactly.
question, I choose a specific identity that
Yes.
I want to take on because I'm up to something specific. Like, I want to create something around the environment in my house, or I want to launch a new product or project in the business. Then in that season, I go through a process that we design to actually create an identity that aligns with that, and then to operate by it so that I can create whatever that goal is in real life.
And that is a repeatable process has power
Mhm.
in and of itself. So
Yeah.
this is the kind of stuff that you write about in your publication. So tell us about your publication.
Yeah, so I just launched Live Sovereign, which is a digital magazine. It's a 12-month subscription where each month we go through a theme around basically creating your identity and starting to operate, align, and integrate that identity into who you are and the way you live. And I write in that, it's a bunch of things. There's always in that theme an exercise and a structure for what we're going to implement, right? In that. There's also real life application, and there's accountability for, okay, how we're building this identity and how we're building the life around it and how we're showing up in
Mm-hmm.
that life. There's recipes, there's things about current events, whether it was the Michael Jackson movie, there's my demonstration and some personal stories from me to illustrate how this actually plays out in my experience, whatever that theme is has brought to my life. So there's a little
Yeah.
bit of everything in it. We have even an interactive portion of it where I'm putting through videos and voice memos, and we're posting about that issue and discussing it so that we're really integrating it. So the
Nice.
first issue is about identity. The second issue is about intention. This third issue coming up is about integrity, which are those structures in your life. Then we'll move into a series around some of the areas of life like vitality and health and relationships. We'll move into clarity and power, some of more the advanced kind of applications of your identity. But it's a life plan. Over the 12 months, you create a life manual for yourself, for who you are and how you can actually show up to live. I talk about a high quality life. I always say I don't play about the quality of my life.
Right.
The
That
depth,
part.
the meaning, the connection, the experience, the love, the results. I like luxury, like all of
Right.
the elements. Those are my indicators of who I am, I being who I say I am. Am I
Mm-hmm.
living those are the markers for me. Ronnie always says to me, sometimes, when I dip in on my intention scale, or, I kind of move outside of my identity, I'll be like, damn, maybe I should have stayed in corporate, or maybe, things like, and she was
Yeah.
like, baby, why are you counting points in a game you don't even want to play? Right. And I
Mm.
have to remember, like, yeah, I know what that game is. And that's not, those
Yeah.
markers of success for that game didn't align with mine. So it kept
Yep.
me always at a deficit. And that is not the way I want to live my life. So understanding what are the markers for success in your life, like for me, understanding that the quality of my connections with my family, the quality of my
Mm-hmm.
health, my schedule and my time and how that flows, like these are markers of success for me. My garden, is my garden flourishing? That's one of
I
my
love it.
KPIs, you know what I mean?
I
So
love it. Not your
um
garden is your KPI. I love that.
yeah.
I
So
love
that,
it.
knowing that, but this publication is really about having each of us kind of create that clarity
Yeah.
and structure for our own identity, for our own life, those markers of success, and to just keep us in the conversation and keep us in the mode of living it, not just knowing it, hearing it, and like, ooh, and aha momenting ourselves, to
I
death.
love it. If somebody only got one thing from this, we've been talking for an hour. If somebody only got one thing from this, what would you want them to take away?
One thing. It would be, stop acting like you don't have power. You get to say, it may not feel like it. It may not look like it. The world and the reality that we're living, the circumstances might be doubling down on saying that you don't, but I promise you, you do. You have power and you get to say. So start saying.